What would you do if the person you trusted most turned your own family against you? My mother-in-law looked me dead in the eyes and said, I always knew you weren't good enough for my son. She handed me divorce papers and a bus ticket out of town. But what she didn't know was that I had something she desperately needed, and by tomorrow morning, she would be the one begging me to stay. But before all of this happened, there was a morning that began just like dozens of others before it. Maya heard the front door slam at 6 a.m. She lay still in bed, pretending to be asleep, listening to her husband Marcus's footsteps fade down the hallway. Another night he hadn't come home. Another morning he acted like nothing was wrong. She waited until she heard his car pull away before she allowed herself to breathe. The bedroom felt cold despite the Georgia summer heat outside. Everything in this house felt cold lately. She got up slowly, her body aching from another sleepless night. In the bathroom mirror, she barely recognized herself. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair she hadn't styled in weeks. The confident marketing executive she used to be had vanished somewhere along the way. Good morning, Maya. The voice came from downstairs, sharp and pointed. Eleanor, her mother-in-law. Maya closed her eyes and steeled herself. Living under the same roof as Eleanor Brooks was like living with a constant storm cloud overhead. The woman had moved in 6 months ago after her husband passed, and she had made it her mission to remind Maya every single day that she wasn't worthy of her precious son. Welcome to my channel. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and like my video. Now let's jump back into my story. I'm sure you'll love it if you keep listening till the end. Maya descended the stairs to find Eleanor already seated at the breakfast table, a cup of coffee in her hand and judgment in her eyes. You look terrible, Eleanor said without looking up from her phone. No wonder Marcus stays out so late. What man wants to come home to that? Maya bit her tongue. She had learned long ago that arguing with Eleanor was pointless. The woman twisted every word, every defense, into further proof of Maya's inadequacy. Where is he? Maya asked quietly, pouring herself coffee. Working, of course. Unlike some people, my son understands responsibility. Eleanor finally looked up, her gaze cold. He mentioned you haven't been contributing much to the household lately. Still playing at that little job of yours? That little job. Maya had been a senior marketing strategist at one of Atlanta's top firms before Marcus convinced her to quit. You're stressed all the time, he had said. My mom needs help around the house. Family comes first. So she had given up her career, her independence, her identity. And now they threw it in her face at every opportunity. I've been looking for remote work, Maya said evenly. Looking. Eleanor laughed, a brittle sound. That's all you ever do. Look. Dream. Waste time. She stood up, smoothing her expensive silk blouse. I'm going to the Brooks Foundation office. Someone has to maintain the family reputation. The Brooks Foundation. The nonprofit Eleanor's late husband had started 30 years ago, now one of the most respected charitable organizations in the Southeast. Marcus ran the day-to-day operations, but Eleanor still controlled everything from behind the scenes. After Eleanor left, Maya sat alone in the kitchen. The silence pressed down on her like a weight. She thought about calling her sister in Chicago, but what would she say? That her marriage was falling apart? That she had given up everything for a man who barely looked at her anymore? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Maya, this is important. Check your husband's second phone. The one he keeps in his golf bag. I'm sorry. Maya stared at the message. Her heart began to pound. Maya's hands trembled as she held the phone. The message stared back at her, each word burning into her mind. Check your husband's second phone. The one he keeps in his golf bag. She should ignore it. It was probably spam, a wrong number, someone playing a cruel joke. But something deep inside her already knew the truth. She had been ignoring the signs for months, maybe years. The late nights. The secretive phone calls. The way Marcus flinched whenever she walked into a room unexpectedly. She climbed the stairs to the spare bedroom Marcus used as his home office. His golf bag sat in the corner, collecting dust. Marcus hadn't played golf in months, despite claiming he was at the club every Saturday. Her fingers found the small zippered pocket on the side of the bag. Inside was a cheap prepaid phone, the kind you buy at gas stations. The kind you buy when you don't want anyone to trace your calls. She powered it on. The screen lit up with dozens of text messages, all from the same contact saved simply as T. Miss you already. When are you leaving her? The baby kicked today. I wish you were here. Maya dropped the phone like it had burned her. Baby. There was a baby. She sank to the floor, her back against the wall. The room spun around her. Everything she thought she knew, everything she had sacrificed, crumbled to dust. She didn't know how long she sat there. Minutes. Maybe hours. The afternoon sun moved across the carpet, shadows lengthening, and still she couldn't move. Finally, with shaking hands, she picked up the phone again. She scrolled further back through the messages, forcing herself to read every word. The affair had been going on for 2 years. The woman, Tanya, worked at the Brooks Foundation. Marcus had promised to leave Maya dozens of times. He called his wife the burden and his mother the dragon in these messages. But it wasn't just the affair that made Maya's blood run cold. It was the other messages. The ones about money. Transfer went through. Another $50,000 moved to the account. The auditors are getting suspicious. We need to slow down. Don't worry. Mom has been cooking the books for years. She'll cover us. Maya read the message 3 times. Eleanor. Eleanor was involved. She started taking screenshots, her marketing brain kicking into gear despite the shock. Document everything. Save the evidence. Don't let emotion cloud judgment. She found bank account numbers, dates of transfers, references to fake vendors and inflated invoices. The Brooks Foundation, the beloved charity that helped underprivileged children across the Southeast, was being systematically drained. And Marcus and Eleanor were the ones holding the bucket. The front door opened downstairs. Maya heard Eleanor's heels clicking against the marble floor. Maya, are you home? Maya quickly powered off the phone and slipped it back into the golf bag. Her heart pounded so loud she was certain Eleanor could hear it from downstairs. She took a deep breath and walked down the stairs, forcing her face into a neutral expression. Eleanor stood in the foyer, but she wasn't alone. Behind her stood Marcus, his handsome face drawn into hard lines. And beside them both was a woman Maya didn't recognize, someone in a sharp business suit carrying a leather briefcase. Sit down, Maya, Eleanor said, gesturing toward the living room. Her voice was ice. What's going on? Maya asked, though a terrible feeling was already spreading through her chest. They moved into the living room. Maya sat on the edge of the couch while the 3 of them stood over her like judges at a trial. This is Patricia Walsh, our family attorney, Eleanor announced. She's drawn up divorce papers. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. What? Marcus wouldn't meet her eyes. He stared at the floor, his jaw tight. My son has finally come to his senses, Eleanor continued, a satisfied smile playing at her lips. He's realized that this marriage was a mistake from the beginning. I always knew you weren't good enough for him, Maya. A girl from nowhere, with nothing, thinking she could join the Brooks family. Maya looked at Marcus. You're not even going to say anything? After 7 years. He finally looked up, but his eyes were empty, distant. It's for the best, Maya. We've grown apart. I need to focus on my career, on the foundation. On Tanya, Maya thought. On your other family. The attorney stepped forward and placed a thick stack of papers on the coffee table. Mrs. Brooks, these documents outline the terms of the divorce settlement. Mr. Brooks is being quite generous, considering the circumstances. Circumstances? Maya's voice cracked. Eleanor's smile widened. We know you've been unhappy, Maya. Depressed. Unstable. She said the last word slowly, letting it hang in the air. We have documentation of your erratic behavior. The way you've withdrawn from family activities. Your inability to maintain employment. Your paranoid accusations against Marcus. I never accused him of anything, Maya said, stunned. Not yet, Eleanor replied coolly. But you were about to, weren't you? Going through his things. Snooping. Looking for problems where there are none. She leaned closer. I have cameras in this house, Maya. I saw you go into his office today. Maya's stomach dropped. Sign the papers, Eleanor said. Take the settlement. Leave Atlanta and never contact this family again. If you don't. She paused, letting the threat hang in the air. We'll have you committed for psychiatric evaluation. A woman as unstable as you clearly needs help. And during that time, well, who knows what might happen to your reputation, your credit, your ability to ever work again. The room was silent. Maya looked from Eleanor to Marcus to the attorney. This was a trap, carefully constructed, and she had walked right into it. But they didn't know what she knew. They didn't know about the phone. I need time to think, Maya said quietly. You have until tomorrow morning, Eleanor snapped. Take tonight to accept reality. You'll sign these papers and then you'll leave. I've already purchased your bus ticket back to whatever small town you came from. She placed a bus ticket on top of the divorce papers. One way to rural Alabama, where Maya's elderly grandmother lived alone. "This is your only option," Eleanor said. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." They left her alone in the living room. Maya heard Marcus's car pull away, probably heading to Tanya's apartment. Eleanor retreated upstairs, satisfied that she had won. Maya sat perfectly still, staring at the divorce papers and the bus ticket. Tomorrow morning. She had less than 24 hours. Her phone buzzed again. The same unknown number. "Don't sign anything. Meet me at Rosewood Cafe tomorrow at 7 a.m. I can help you, but you need to trust me. I've been watching the Brooks family for a long time." "Who is this?" Maya typed back. The response came quickly. "Someone who wants to see Eleanor Brooks finally pay for what she's done. Someone who lost everything because of her lies, just like you're about to. My name is Diane. I'm Eleanor's sister." Maya stared at the message. Eleanor had a sister? In 7 years, no one had ever mentioned another family member. Eleanor spoke as if she had always been alone, the sole pillar of the Brooks dynasty. Whatever secrets this family was hiding, Maya realized, they went deeper than she ever imagined. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in the guest bedroom, her mind racing through everything she had discovered. The affair, the baby, the stolen money. Eleanor's cameras watching her every move. She had to be careful. One wrong step and Eleanor would follow through on her threats. The woman had power, connections, and absolutely no conscience. At 6:30 a.m., Maya slipped out of the house through the back door, avoiding the areas where she suspected cameras might be. She had memorized the address of Rosewood Cafe the night before and deleted all the messages from her phone. The cafe was small and quiet, tucked away in a neighborhood far from the Brooks family's usual territory. Maya arrived early, choosing a booth in the back corner where she could see the door. At exactly 7 a.m., a woman walked in. She was in her late 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a simple bun. Her clothes were modest, nothing like Eleanor's designer outfits. But her face, her bone structure, the way she carried herself, there was no mistaking the resemblance. The woman spotted Maya and walked over. She slid into the booth across from her. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice was softer than Eleanor's, warmer. "I'm Diane. Diane Crawford now, though I was born Diane Holloway, just like Eleanor." "Why are you helping me?" Maya asked. "I don't even know you." Diane smiled sadly. "Because 30 years ago, I was exactly where you are now. Young, trusting, destroyed by my sister's lies." She ordered coffee for both of them, and then she began to talk. "Eleanor and I grew up poor," Diane explained. "Our parents worked themselves to death just to keep food on the table. When I was 22, I fell in love with a man named Robert Brooks." Maya's eyes widened. "Eleanor's husband?" Diane nodded slowly. "He was my fiancé first. We were going to be married. He came from money, old Atlanta money, and he genuinely loved me. But Eleanor..." She paused, her jaw tightening. Eleanor saw an opportunity. What did she do? She told Robert the first was having an affair. She fabricated love letters, staged photographs, even convinced one of her friends to pretend he was my secret lover. Diane's voice cracked slightly. Robert believed her. He broke off our engagement, and 3 months later, he married Eleanor instead. Maya sat in stunned silence. The cruelty was breathtaking. "I tried to tell him the truth," Diane continued. "I begged him to listen. But Eleanor had already poisoned him against me. She told everyone I was mentally unstable, delusional, dangerous. Our own parents believed her. By the end of that year, I had lost my fiancé, my family, and my reputation. That's why no one ever mentioned you," Maya whispered. "She erased you. Completely. I moved away, changed my name when I married, built a new life. For 30 years, I stayed away. I thought I had found peace." Diane reached into her bag and pulled out a worn folder. "But 6 months ago, something changed. An old friend who still works at the Brooks Foundation reached out to me. She had noticed irregularities in the finances. Things that didn't add up. She slid the folder across the table. She started sending me documents. Small things at first, invoices that looked suspicious, vendor payments to companies that didn't seem to exist. I began investigating quietly, from a distance." Maya opened the folder. Inside were printouts of financial records, emails, and bank statements. The same patterns she had seen on Marcus's phone. "They've been stealing from the foundation for years," Diane said. "Millions of dollars that were supposed to help children, supposed to build schools and provide scholarships, funneled into their personal accounts. I found evidence on Marcus's phone, Maya said. Text messages about transfers, fake vendors. Diane leaned forward, her eyes intense. Then we have more than I hoped. Maya, the foundation's annual gala is in 3 days. Every major donor, every board member, every journalist in the city will be there. If we can expose Eleanor and Marcus publicly, with evidence they cannot deny, we can bring them down. 3 days. Maya thought about the divorce papers sitting on the coffee table at home. Eleanor gave me until this morning to sign. She'll be expecting me to be gone by tonight. Then we let her think she's won, Diane said. Sign the papers. Pretend to leave. But instead of getting on that bus, you come stay with me. We spend the next 3 days building an airtight case. And then we walk into that gala and destroy them. Maya looked at this woman, this stranger who shared her enemy's blood but not her cruelty. Trust was a dangerous thing. But what choice did she have? Why now? Maya asked. You stayed away for 30 years. Why risk everything to help me? Diane was quiet for a long moment. Because last month I received a diagnosis. Cancer. Stage 3. She said it calmly, without self-pity. The doctors say I have a year, maybe 2. I realized I couldn't die without setting things right. I couldn't let Eleanor get away with everything she's done, not just to me, but to everyone she's ever hurt. She reached across the table and took Maya's hand. You have a choice, Maya. You can take that bus ticket, go back to Alabama, and spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been. Or you can fight. You can take back your dignity, expose the truth, and make sure Eleanor Brooks never destroys another person again. Maya looked down at their joined hands. She thought about the woman she used to be, confident and ambitious. She thought about everything she had given up, everything that had been taken from her. She made her decision. Tell me what I need to do. Maya returned to the house at 9 a.m. Eleanor was waiting in the foyer, arms crossed, satisfaction radiating from every pore. Well, she demanded. Maya walked slowly to the living room, picked up the pen from the coffee table, and signed the divorce papers. Each signature felt like swallowing glass, but she kept her face blank. Smart girl, Eleanor said. Your bus leaves at 2 p.m. I expect you to be packed and gone by noon. I'll need to get my things from the bedroom, Maya said quietly. Take only what you brought into this marriage. Everything else stays. Maya nodded and climbed the stairs. In the bedroom, she packed a single suitcase with her clothes, her laptop, and the few personal items that truly belonged to her. She left behind the jewelry Marcus had given her, the expensive clothes Eleanor had picked out, everything that tied her to this family. But before she left, she made one final stop in Marcus's office. She retrieved the burner phone from the golf bag and slipped it into her purse. Eleanor's cameras might have caught her going in there, but it didn't matter anymore. She would be gone before anyone checked the footage. At noon, Maya walked out the front door without looking back. Eleanor watched from the window, a triumphant smile on her face. The taxi took Maya not to the bus station, but to a small apartment complex on the other side of the city. Diane was waiting outside. Welcome to headquarters, Diane said, helping her with the suitcase. For the next 3 days, this is home. The apartment was modest but comfortable. Diane had converted the spare bedroom into a makeshift office, with a laptop, printer, and stacks of documents covering every surface. We need to organize everything, Diane said, clearing a space on the desk. Right now we have scattered evidence. We need to build a timeline, connect the dots, and create a presentation that even the most skeptical board member cannot dismiss. Maya pulled out Marcus's burner phone. This is the key. 2 years of text messages between Marcus and his mistress Tanya. They discussed transfers, fake invoices, and Eleanor's involvement in covering it up. Diane's eyes widened. This is more than I ever found. With this, we can prove intent, prove conspiracy. They worked through the night. Maya's marketing skills proved invaluable, organizing the evidence into a clear, devastating narrative. Diane's 30 years of quiet research provided the historical context, showing how Eleanor had manipulated everyone around her since the very beginning. By the second day, they had identified over $3 million in stolen funds. Shell companies in Delaware, bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, fake contractors who had never built a single thing. But they also found something else, something that changed everything. Look at this, Maya said, pointing to a series of emails from 5 years ago. Diane leaned over her shoulder and read. Her face went pale. The emails were between Eleanor and a private investigator. The subject was Robert Brooks, Eleanor's late husband, Diane's former fiancé. The documents you requested have been prepared. Medical records have been altered as specified. No one will question the heart attack diagnosis. Excellent. Make sure the coroner understands the importance of discretion. The Foundation cannot afford any scandal. Diane sat down heavily. She killed him, she whispered. She killed Robert. Maya kept reading. The emails revealed that Robert had discovered the fraud 6 years ago. He had threatened to go to the authorities, to expose everything. And 3 weeks later, he was dead from a sudden heart attack at age 62. We need to show this to the police, Maya said. After the gala, Diane replied, her voice hardening. If we go to the police now, Eleanor's lawyers will bury it in legal proceedings for years. But if we expose everything publicly first, with the press watching, with the board watching, there will be nowhere for her to hide. Maya understood. This wasn't just about justice anymore. This was about ensuring Eleanor could never manipulate her way out of consequences again. The morning of the gala, Maya woke early. She showered, dressed in a simple but elegant black dress that Diane had helped her find at a consignment shop, and looked at herself in the mirror. She didn't look like a victim anymore. Are you ready? Diane asked from the doorway. What if it doesn't work? Maya said quietly. What if she finds a way to twist this too? Diane walked over and placed her hands on Maya's shoulders. 30 years ago, I let Eleanor destroy me without a fight. I accepted her version of reality because it was easier than standing up for myself. I have regretted that decision every single day since. She met Maya's eyes in the mirror. Tonight, we don't just fight for ourselves. We fight for Robert, who tried to do the right thing and paid with his life. We fight for every child who never received the help they were promised. We fight for every person Eleanor has ever stepped on to get what she wanted. Maya nodded slowly. Then let's finish this. The grand ballroom of the Peachtree Hotel sparkled with 1,000 lights. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. Waiters in white jackets circulated with champagne and delicate appetizers. Atlanta's wealthiest families mingled in designer gowns and tailored suits, all gathered to celebrate the Brooks Foundation's 30th anniversary. Maya stood outside the entrance, her heart pounding against her ribs. Beside her, Diane squeezed her hand. Remember, Diane whispered, we wait for Eleanor's speech. That's when everyone will be watching. That's when we strike. They had spent the last 3 days preparing for this moment. The presentation was loaded on a small USB drive in Maya's clutch. Every piece of evidence, every damning email, every fraudulent transaction, organized into an undeniable sequence. Maya had also made one phone call that morning, to Detective Angela Morrison of the Atlanta Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. The detective had been quietly investigating the Brooks Foundation for months, following up on anonymous tips that never led anywhere because Eleanor always seemed one step ahead. Maya's evidence was exactly what she needed. Detective Morrison would be at the gala tonight, waiting in the wings with a warrant. Let's go, Maya said. They walked through the grand entrance. A few heads turned, but no one recognized Maya in her elegant black dress, her hair styled differently, her posture confident. She was not the broken woman who had left the Brooks house 3 days ago. The ballroom was packed. Maya scanned the crowd and spotted them immediately. Eleanor stood near the stage, holding court with a group of admirers. She wore a stunning emerald gown and diamonds that could feed a family for a year. Her smile was radiant, her laughter charming. The perfect picture of philanthropic grace. Marcus stood nearby, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. And beside him, trying to stay inconspicuous but failing miserably, was Tanya. She wore a loose-fitting dress that couldn't quite hide her growing belly. Maya felt a twist in her stomach, but pushed it aside. Tonight was not about jealousy. Tonight was about justice. There's the technical booth, Diane said quietly, nodding toward a small enclosed area near the back of the stage. My friend Sarah is working the audio and visual tonight. She's expecting us. They made their way through the crowd, avoiding Eleanor's line of sight. Sarah, a nervous woman in her 50s who had worked at the foundation for 20 years, was waiting by the booth door. I can't believe we're actually doing this, Sarah whispered, letting them inside. I've watched Eleanor destroy so many people. Good people who ask too many questions, who notice too many inconsistencies. She always finds a way to make them disappear. Not tonight, Maya said firmly. She handed Sarah the USB drive. Load this onto the presentation system. When Eleanor finishes her speech, I'll give you the signal. Sarah nodded and got to work. Maya and Diane found seats near the back of the ballroom, where they could watch without being noticed. The evening proceeded with the usual pleasantries. A welcome from the board chairman. A video celebrating the foundation's achievements. Testimonials from scholarship recipients whose lives had been changed. Maya watched the video with a sick feeling in her stomach. These success stories were real. The foundation had genuinely helped thousands of children over the years. But for every dollar that reached a deserving student, how many had been siphoned into Eleanor's pockets? Finally, the moment arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, the board chairman announced, please welcome the heart and soul of the Brooks Foundation, our beloved matriarch, Eleanor Brooks. The room erupted in applause. Eleanor glided onto the stage, her smile wider than ever. She approached the podium, adjusted the microphone, and began to speak. Thank you all. 30 years ago, my late husband Robert had a dream. A dream of giving back to our community, of lifting up young people who deserved a chance but couldn't afford one. Maya watched Eleanor perform her grief, dabbing at her eyes with a silk handkerchief as she mentioned Robert. The woman who had arranged his death now publicly mourned him for sympathy. Robert's vision lives on through all of you, Eleanor continued. Through your generous donations, your tireless support, your belief in our mission. Tonight, I am proud to announce that the Brooks Foundation has provided over $50 million in scholarships and community programs since our founding. More applause. More smiles. More champagne raised in toast. Eleanor was building to her big finish. Maya could feel it. She glanced at the technical booth and saw Sarah watching her, waiting. And so, Eleanor said, her voice rising with emotion, I ask you to join me in looking forward to the next 30 years. The next $50 million. The next generation of young people whose lives we will change together. The applause was thunderous. Eleanor basked in it, her eyes closed, her arms spread wide as if embracing the adoration of the entire room. Now, Maya stood up from her seat. She walked toward the stage, her heels clicking against the marble floor. People turned to look at her. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Eleanor opened her eyes. The smile froze on her face. What are you doing here? She hissed into the microphone, forgetting for a moment that everyone could hear. You're supposed to be gone. Maya climbed the stairs to the stage. Security guards moved toward her, but she spoke quickly into the microphone that Eleanor had abandoned in her shock. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Maya Brooks. Some of you may know me as Marcus Brooks's wife. Or rather, his ex-wife. 3 days ago, Eleanor Brooks forced me to sign divorce papers under threat of having me committed to a psychiatric institution. Gasps rippled through the audience. Eleanor's face contorted with rage. Get her off this stage, Eleanor commanded. She's mentally unstable. She's lying. But Maya didn't stop. Eleanor Brooks has called me a liar. She has called me unstable, delusional, paranoid. These are the same words she used 30 years ago to destroy her own sister, Diane, whose only crime was being engaged to the man Eleanor wanted for herself. Maya pointed to the back of the room. Diane stood up, visible to everyone. Diane Crawford was erased from this family's history. Just like I was about to be erased. But we're done being silent. The security guards hesitated, looking to the board chairman for direction. The board chairman looked confused, uncertain. Sarah, Maya said calmly, please play the presentation. The massive screens on either side of the stage flickered to life. The first slide was simple. A title card that read, The Truth About the Brooks Foundation. What you are about to see, Maya announced, her voice steady, is documented evidence of systematic fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy spanning more than a decade. Eleanor lunged for the technical booth, but 2 board members, their faces pale with shock, stepped into her path. Let her speak, one of them said grimly. I want to see this. The presentation began. First, the financial records. Side-by-side comparisons of legitimate invoices and the fraudulent ones. Payments to shell companies that existed only on paper. Bank account transfers to offshore accounts traced directly to Eleanor and Marcus Brooks. The audience watched in stunned silence. Then, the text messages from Marcus's burner phone. His conversations with Tanya about the transfers. His casual references to cooking the books. His promises to leave his wife once they had stolen enough to start their new life together. Maya glanced at Marcus in the audience. He had turned gray, his mouth hanging open. Tanya was crying silently beside him. Next, the emails about Robert Brooks. The correspondence with the private investigator. The instructions to alter medical records. The discussion of the coroner's discretion. Robert Brooks discovered this fraud 6 years ago, Maya said into the microphone. He threatened to expose everything. 3 weeks later, he was dead from a supposed heart attack. She paused, letting the implications sink in. These emails suggest his death was not natural. The room exploded in chaos. People shouted. Some tried to leave. Others demanded explanations. Eleanor's mask had completely shattered. She screamed at Maya, at the board members, at anyone who would listen. This is fabricated. She's a liar. My son and I built this foundation. We gave everything to this community. But no one was listening to her anymore. The final slide appeared on screen. A photograph of Eleanor and Marcus meeting with the representatives of 3 different shell companies, all on the same day, all in locations they had claimed to never visit. $3 million, Maya said quietly into the microphone. That's how much has been stolen from this foundation. $3 million that was supposed to educate children, feed families, and build communities. She turned to face Eleanor directly. You took everything from me. My career. My confidence. My marriage. My dignity. You tried to erase me, just like you erased your sister, just like you erased your husband when he got in your way. Maya's voice didn't waver. But you made one mistake, Eleanor. You underestimated me. The ballroom doors opened. Detective Morrison walked in, flanked by 4 uniformed officers. Eleanor Brooks, Marcus Brooks, the detective announced. You are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Additional charges may be filed pending investigation into the death of Robert Brooks. The officers moved through the crowd. Marcus didn't resist. He seemed almost relieved, as if a weight had been lifted. But Eleanor fought like a wild animal, screaming accusations and threats as they handcuffed her. You'll regret this, she shrieked at Maya. I will destroy you. You are nothing. Nothing. Maya watched them lead her away. She felt no satisfaction, no joy. Only a deep, exhausted peace. Diane had made her way to the stage. She stood beside Maya, tears streaming down her face. It's over, Diane whispered. After 30 years, it's finally over. The weeks that followed were chaos. The Brooks Foundation was placed under emergency oversight by the state attorney general. A forensic audit revealed that the fraud was even more extensive than Maya had discovered, stretching back nearly 15 years. Robert Brooks had only scratched the surface before his death. Eleanor and Marcus were denied bail. The evidence was too overwhelming, the flight risk too high. Tanya, who had been a willing participant in the fraud, cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. The investigation into Robert's death was reopened. While the evidence was circumstantial, it was enough to add murder conspiracy charges to Eleanor's case. She would likely spend the rest of her life in prison. Maya received a flood of media requests. Everyone wanted to interview the woman who had brought down the Brooks empire. But she declined them all. She had no desire for fame or attention. She had only wanted justice. Instead, she focused on rebuilding her life. She found a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. She updated her resume and reached out to old colleagues. Within a month, she had a job offer from a marketing firm that valued her experience and her integrity. She also spent time with Diane, whose cancer treatments were progressing better than expected. The doctors were cautiously optimistic about remission. I never thought I'd see Eleanor face consequences, Diane said one afternoon as they sat in her garden. I had accepted that she would win forever, that some people are just too powerful to touch. No one is too powerful for the truth, Maya replied. Diane smiled. You taught me that. After 30 years of hiding, of running, of accepting defeat, you showed me that it's never too late to fight back. 1 year later, Maya stood at a podium in the same ballroom where she had exposed Eleanor's crimes. But tonight, the occasion was different. The Brooks Foundation had been reorganized under new leadership, with strict oversight and transparent accounting. The board had voted unanimously to rename it the Robert and Diane Brooks Foundation, honoring the man who had tried to stop the fraud and the woman who had finally helped expose it. Maya had been invited to speak at the ceremony. 1 year ago, she began, looking out at an audience that included many of the same faces from that fateful night. I stood on this stage as a woman who had lost everything. My marriage, my home, my sense of self. She paused, remembering the cold terror of that night on Eleanor's porch, the moment she thought her life was over. But I learned something important in that darkness. I learned that our circumstances do not define us. Our choices do. I could have accepted defeat. I could have gotten on that bus and spent the rest of my life wondering what might have been. Instead, I chose to fight. She looked at Diane, seated in the front row, healthy and smiling. I didn't fight alone. I had help from someone who understood my pain because she had lived it herself. Someone who taught me that it's never too late to reclaim your story. Maya took a deep breath. To anyone listening who feels trapped, who feels powerless, who feels like the people who hurt them are too strong to challenge, I want you to know this. You are stronger than you think. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And no one, no matter how powerful they seem, can silence you unless you let them. The applause that followed was deafening. But Maya barely heard it. She was thinking about the woman she used to be, the woman who had been so lost, so broken, so sure that her story was over. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone new. Someone who had walked through fire and emerged not just intact, but transformed. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who hurt us most deeply. And sometimes the only way forward is to stop running and turn around to face the storm. Maya's story reminds us that silence is not safety. That dignity is not something anyone can take from you without your permission. And that the truth, no matter how long it takes, always finds its way into the light. If this story touched your heart, please hit subscribe and like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to reclaim their power. I share new life stories here every day, and I'm so grateful you stayed until the end. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done in Maya's situation? I read every single comment, and I love hearing from you. Until next time, remember, your story isn't over. The best chapter might be the one you're about to write.